what is a bigger problem currently for you all? Is it the finding a winner or scaling a winner or iterating on one once you have one?
I've found iterating on a winner comes a bit more naturally, and in fact, that's almost the problem. So if you find something that works, you can chop it up, do slightly different variations, get other people to record similar videos in the same theme and tone, and essentially get more of what is the same, but just with slight variations. I think that's also an easier thing to kind of get into the process of doing it. What I find harder is going back to the drawing board when you see those returns on those types of ads slowly dwindling over time. And when's the right point in time to go, right, we need a new strategic reset of like the whole theme of the creative in the first place. Like if you're on UGC and that seems to be working and you've milked all your testimonials and stuff like that, and then going back and doing something that's more like problem driven and producing something that's more like traditional ad. Yeah, I don't know. I find the balance of like when to start that creative process again quite hard. Yeah.
And to be clear, the creative process for a new concept or iterating on a concept?
For the new concepts altogether. And like because also that's more relevant as well when you have a new brand. So for example, if I bring in a new brand, or we've got a brand that has been working, but it's been through another channel, and then all of a sudden want to introduce Facebook ads, how do you start afresh, right? What's the initial concept approach to building up concepts that you might want to like brainstorm everything and then pick obviously the things that you're going to produce, because it takes resources to produce each thing that you chase.
Cool. Okay. Anyone else? I guess got feedback on that one. Yes.
Yeah.
Zach?
Maybe we can talk a little bit about the budget for testing, like because there's a couple of issues or maybe some scenarios where I remember that clients or projects don't have enough budgets, but they do want to test a lot of things. And so what's the balance between the amount of money that we put, the amount of impressions and data that we get, and like what's the sweet spot between budget and amount of creatives that we can test to get valuable insights, at least, or actionable insights, maybe. I've been doing like for local campaigns, for example, for local campaigns in lead generation, there's no much budget. There's so much budget you can put, right, for a radio's targeting. So how do you approach that scenario, right? How do you approach what's the balance there between the amount of money that you, because maybe you're putting like 20 bucks a day just, or 30 bucks a day, something like that. How much can you test with 30 bucks a day, right? It's easier to test a lot of things when you have like 1K a day, I guess.
Okay, cool. Do you have anything on the, I guess, the ideation side, or this is more like media buying technicalities?
Yeah, ideation, it's a huge one, I guess. Ideation of, like, for example, what do you mean with ideation? Ideation of the creative itself, or ideation of the process that you're going to put in place to test?
Well, if you go inputs and outputs, the better or more variety you have on the concept being created, different angle or positioning, then the way you test it can also be different as well. So I guess it's more along the lines of ideation around how do you target the same person with a different message? You know, how do you go into those pain points and take that same piece of creative, but just manipulate it in a way where it speaks a different way? Like this question, right? Like this question can go into creative technicalities or creative ideation, and or like this call can go Q&A or hot seat, but it's the same call. So it's more along those lines.
Hmm.
I think that something to add from my side would be around the sources for ideation. So kind of what inspiration sources are being used and how do you use them consistently? Yeah, just so they're kind of almost on tap. Because I find that's where the best ideas come from, innovating on other concepts that you've seen live rather than, just inventing them out of scratch. Yeah, out of thin air. Whether it's Facebook ad library or, wherever, just various sources that you can almost like guarantee will just bring in new ideas on tap.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Zach, anything on your side?
I'm just actually thinking, but I think just one thing that I've been doing recently, which might be useful to kind of expand on from your side, is in terms of like iterations of winning ads. Like what kind of ways do you have to get more out of ads that are already winning? So, for example, one example I did recently was, I had a creator who I had used before, and they were actually performing quite well. And then I just basically asked them to, wear different clothing or be in a different background, and then do the exact same ad once again. But I'm kind of wondering if you have any other like further kind of ideas on that, like different ways to iterate on winners to get more out of them, basically.
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of times when people iterate, they'll make too subtle of changes, like the button color, or they'll obsess about like one little emoji, but really it's those macro moves. So yeah, this is a solid question as well.
So something to chuck in maybe for not necessarily this session, but depending on, and this would probably be relevant because there might be people with different budgets, depending on the level of budget, what is like that rule of thumb for the amount of creative that you should be churning out, right? It relates to testing, but also, yeah, obviously testing is typically creative driven. Yeah, I think this is something that like people always say, well, the more the better, but realistically, it all takes effort and resource. So, yeah, what is the right rule of thumb for for the levels that you should be doing?
Cool. Okay. So I see like a pattern emerging. I'm gonna kind of like break these questions up because to get to one step of like answering this question, first need to know like the fundamentals, I guess, of creating, or I guess what I'm trying to get to is if you understand how to create at will, then this is very easy because you can just pull that lever. But if we talk about, for example, how many should be like doing the math behind how many we should be testing, then you still have to figure out what do you actually test, like how do you feed in new ads. So we can start with having the ability to create ads at will, and then we can figure out on the next session, the following one, okay, cool, now that you can pump out 100 creatives a day if you really wanted to, how do you actually prioritize those ones? I think just sequencing these out. So
yeah.
Maybe make this like how to create ads. How do you ideate, create, and iterate? Because a lot of these, like this ability to create, stems from like the inputs, right? Because like, what kind of content do you have? Do you have to go out and create content? Can you pull from your existing content? I'm a big believer in, like, our whole philosophy is we don't create any content because everyone has a ton of it. Most brands have, you know, like a Google Drive folder of Billo videos, or they have customer testimonials, or they have customer interviews, or they have founder talking head videos. That's all you need to manipulate the ad in 100 different ways versus thinking that you can't make an ad because you don't have the content for it. So oftentimes you have more than you need, but people are in this like shiny object syndrome where they go out and create more. For example, like with Mateo, I know he had customer interviews for Media Buyer, and you can find the concepts around, well, what is MediaBuyer.com and what are people saying about it? What are the patterns people are saying? How are they describing it? And everyone you'll find has a common pattern of how they're describing the product. So, I'm not going to put the words in my mouth. I might say it differently, but you take those different talking points and you have different people saying those things. So if someone's talking about the transformation and someone's talking about their problem, you just visualize that. So we'll do this live so you see what I'm talking about, but we can start here. If you guys are cool with that, like the ideation, creation, and iteration, and then whatever's time left over, we can figure out to go into there. That's cool with you guys. If you want to give me a brand, one of your brands, we can go from there, and then I can just walk through, like, I mean, you'll see live, like I won't know your brand, and I can tell you where am I going to get inspiration from, how am I going to ideate these things. And it's kind of gonna be like jazz, where it's like it's gonna emerge naturally. There won't be any structure to it. So I know, Sean, you had some brands, Zach, if you want to share your brand, or Lucas, but whatever I guess is most relevant to everyone.
I think mine is a very kind of specialized thing, so it would probably not be that relevant to everyone here. So maybe someone else would be better.
I can do one that's quite tangible. So if you just punch into your browser buy.vanmate.co.
And one more time.
BUY, yeah.
Mhm.
.vanmate, VANMATE.co. So yeah, if you pull it up, that's the URL. Quite simple. This is a van alarm, self-install van alarm, yeah, which is low price point. So 40, 50 pound. Yeah, battery operated. Somebody can just stick it in. It's got there's two versions. One is based on vibration. One is based on an optical sensor, and it's to stop van tool theft, right? So rather than preventing stealing of the van, in the UK there's a big problem for vans being broken into and the tools being stolen out of the back. So it's a deterrent, very low price point deterrent for van crime in the UK. So yeah, this is a brand that we've actually haven't been running ads for a little while, just because we've been rebuilding the whole website and getting it ready for international expansion. So it'd be a good point in time to like be, okay, what if we were to rebuild some of the ads and look at it fresh, what would they look like? But typically the content that we've got existing is like a bit of talk to camera, tradesmen. So these are all tradesmen, right? Real blokey bloke guys. And explaining you can install it in a couple of minutes, anti-theft type thing. And a bit of scaremongering, I guess. But it's all meant to be very tradesman oriented kind of content. Hope that's a working example for us. So if you go that VanMate alarms one, yeah, that one just there, maybe play that one. That might be a good example of the fifth video. Yeah. I think it's on the website as well. But yeah, this kind of imagery of van theft, how you turn it on.
Mate, I bought one of these. I'm part of my van getting broken into. This thing is so loud, anyone's gonna know it gets broken into. Super nice. Literally 2 seconds. And stupidly loud.
Anyway, you get the idea. This type of stuff is what I've got a little bit of, not a huge amount. It feels like need to build in a process to get more of this on a routine basis from customers, whether it's offer of discounts or something, but they're not necessarily the type that would typically like speak to camera, right? Like this type of persona are a bit hesitant probably to help you create content. So of course you can pay for UGC as well, but it is quite a niche demographic, and I think people would see through the actors almost if they didn't seem legit.
Cool. Okay. Can definitely work with this one. What do you guys think? Let's go with it.
Good example.
Sweet. So I tried not to like my brain usually goes straight to like jumping in and like finding things, but I was trying to pull myself back a little bit. So now I'm gonna like as I'm gonna be doing this, I'll just kind of be sharing this out loud, kind of like what I'm thinking about, what do I want to do next, what do I feel like I'm missing, because you know an initial jump might be like what's an ad account right now, like what can I do, what can I quickly iterate, but like from this video, which was a great example, there was a bunch of different styles. There's a bunch of different styles here. Like you have, I guess we can break down the content types. That's the first thing I would do here. Is I want to find out like what are the building blocks to the ad or to the creatives. So I know there were some talking heads, customer talking heads. Because my next question here is like once I define the variables, then I want to understand what is the distribution of variables, like the fact that I have like customer talking heads and then let's say this one.
CCTV.
Perfect. Product
Then there's,
demo.
I guess, product demos. Yeah.
Stock footage, which I'm not a biggest fan of, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But there's an abundance of those.
Mate, I bought one of these.
There's your customer video.
Um,
There's your demo.
Definitely get one of these for the family. For your family.
Okay. So then,
there are things which come to mind, yeah.
yeah, and then I'm gonna keep looking and see what else we have. We have unboxing videos. And the process usually is going to start with a brain dump of what do you have, and then you're going to reduce it to the things like always start with elimination instead of addition. So we're going to go addition from subtraction here. So we'll want to add as many things here, and then, you know, I'll ask you like what ads are actually working. You're going to say probably all the ads that have the CCTV and customer talking head videos, so we can cut those out. But I really just want to define what we have first. Maybe it's like a production video, it seems like. Paid production. And then I have some blocks here. Now I want to kind of go on the website and see what do you have on the product page? Like what is being used? So same video. I usually look in the reviews if there's any videos. Oftentimes there might not be. And then I'm going to go into ad library and just see what content there are. Oops. Are you running any ads by chance? You know?
There should be. Just make sure you got the right account because there's a few. Yeah, that looks like it's probably the most recent, but we haven't been running many in the past couple of months, really.
Cool. So I guess we'll start
A
here.
lot of static ads as well. There've been quite a few static of just like product image with statistics. So I think statistics is quite a big one, and imagery of broken-in vans. So that is kind of on the CCTV thing. Like one van gets broken into every 20 minutes in the UK, or all of these types of things. You know, they're kind of, I guess, yeah, fear-mongering stats. You know, how you bucket that.
Okay. In terms of the content that you have the most abundance of, which ones would you say those are?
Abundance is not a lot, to be honest. I know you said there's yeah, that's the first cab off the ranks. If anything, it's probably customer talking heads, but you've probably seen most of them now with your scan already. CCTV, I wouldn't say we have an abundance of, but that is stuff that can be sourced a bit easier. But a lot of it is a bit stocky, so comes off as a bit, fake, really. Product demo, got lots of that. Yeah. But whether or not I think that's as impactful as the talking heads is another one. And those other ones, yeah, stock footage, unboxing, paid production stuff that doesn't tend to work as well as those ones on the left.
Cool. Okay. So then the reason I wanted to put all those there is any ideas that now will come are not going to include these. We're just going to deduct them. So within this now you're quite limited, but then your ability to kind of source inspiration changes now. Because if you're thinking of everything here, like where do you get inspiration from? Well, if you have all those possible things, you're thinking about too many things. It's kind of like there's that book Essentialism, and there's like an arrow where it's like focus one line and then focus with 10 lines, and they don't go very far. This is people overthink, and now you start thinking, okay, what can I do with CCTV? What can I do with customer talking heads? And what can I do with product demo? My next question there is, I guess, what is the best way to display the problem? Like, is a problem best shown through, like somebody who's scrolling on Facebook and they're seeing this van alarm, right? If I'm seeing this now from this product image, I might be thinking, where do I put this in my van? Does this go in my house? Is this a light? Like I'm still unsure kind of how it works. So from a video standpoint, what is like that aha moment? For example, when I was at this company called All About Vibe, we were a giftable product. And the aha moment was when you unbox the product, you have the reaction. That reaction needs to be caught on camera. If you're a supplement company and you're selling protein powder and you're playing on taste, the aha moment is the fact that it doesn't taste chalky and it tastes good. And you want to catch those things on camera so other people understand that's what they're buying it for. So within this, is it, for example, a robber coming in, trying to steal the car and the alarm stopping them?
Yeah, it's either that, or I think what really hits is the emotional impact of the crime. So the best videos tend to be ones where someone had been impacted by tool theft, because it impacts their livelihood, right? They lose their tools, they can't do their job. Right? And a lot of the time it's people that have either heard of someone that they've been hit, or they personally happened to them, and so they're looking for the solution. So really that kind of emotive story of I've been broken into a couple of times and I was sick of it, that type of thing. The actual product install stuff is less interesting. Like the hook is that you can resolve it within a couple of minutes, self-install, but it's not super exciting as much. I guess you could take someone on the journey with, revealing that they're, concerned about the safety of their van, or they've been impacted before, and now they've found a neat and quick little solution. But it's definitely that emotional kind of hook of people that have been impacted.
Cool. So if I'm hearing you correctly, there's like two parts here, like a professional side with like contractors, plumbers, whoever has a truck, and then potentially a B2C side where, a mom in a van parks at a local store, and then, things get stolen into.
Yeah, the predominant customer base is that contractor. Yep, self-employed tradie, right? So 30 to 50-year-old male, blue collar. Yeah, that's his livelihood. His tools are his job, and his job is his source of income, sole source of income. So it's that definitely that persona is the predominant one. There will also be people that have grown out of that mode and operate a fleet. So you get people that order 10, 20, 30 units and they're fleet operators, but it's still kind of that B2B, but it's the personal impact. We're reaching out to the person within the B2B environment.
Cool. So again, I'm now deducing everything that I'm going to be thinking about in terms of where I'm going to source inspiration from a B2B. I'm going to try to think now, like what other products exist in the market, who's reaching the product, like the consumer that I'm trying to reach. Because if we're talking about it's like a 45-year-old mom with 3 kids and, that's a whole different type of persona to reach. But if we're talking about a self-employed contractor, I'm assuming it's typically going to be a male, like you said, typically like of a certain affluence, like they're a customer of somebody. So who are they buying from? What are they currently seeing? And then again, we're going to use our ingredients that you have to then ideate how do you make it actually applicable? Because there's theoretical stuff like, let me go on foreplay and like click on some stuff and like, cool, let's do that. And then there's a practical of like, cool, let's take the blocks from there. So do you have any examples of brands or other products that these people are buying or using?
I mean, ironically, it's the tools type stuff. So, hardware, tools, these types of things that they're using for their trade. That is definitely what's worked well from an ad targeting perspective as well previously. So, either individual brands of tools, or hardware stores. Yeah, they tend to resonate quite well.
Okay, I'm gonna actually rephrase that question because that's the wrong question. So let's go after, I guess, potential angles if you have any. So I know you kind of shared that earlier.
Yeah.
So within the angles, can you kind of break down reasons why someone would buy again, just so we kind of like display those?
Yeah, sure. So I guess it's self-installed. So the competition, right? Alternatives, first of all, are going to be alarm systems that are installed by a professional for 500 to £1,000. Yeah. And they're more full vehicle systems. This is low price point. So number one, and so it can be delivered within 24 hours. They can have it installed within 2 to 4 minutes, and they can do it all themselves. Yeah, so self-install, cheap solution that kind of solves the problem very quickly. It may not be the ultimate solution to the problem, but it gets quick relief of stress or anxiety that you might be exposed. Yeah. The other one is that it's like I mean, obviously functionally it's they're deterrents. So they set off with a motion alarm, and either when people are entering the van or when they have already entered the van, specifically for protecting the tools. So you could say that it's built for them. Yeah. Tradesmen who have tools and protect in the back of the van, that's who it's for, as opposed to protecting the vehicle. And so specifically, if people are breaking in and they hear the alarm go off, it's a deterrent, and hopefully they should just leave the van as is. Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
What else? Just have a quick scan of the website. There are other products, I mean, but at its core, that's what they're doing. There's also an app, which creates a bit of community around sharing van crime, and it's not super functional in how it relates to the products themselves, but it's this community and fighting back against criminals, which is part of the brand ethos.
Cool. Okay.
Finally, UK based, so UK based support, quick shipping, these types of things. It's not massively huge, but we definitely find our customers like being able to just email or chat with UK based support, and not have to deal with someone overseas.
Yep, so my head already like lit up with some ideas here. I'm just gonna kind of like, when I always think about like new products, it's always like that thing, I think Russell Brunson broke this down really well, like .com secrets, which is like there's 3 niches and then there's a sub niches. And you're in the niche of wealth, you're saving people money, not health
Yep.
or relationships. So I'm only thinking within that stuff. This is within relationships, it seems like the community aspect. And
Mm.
if I've never had my van broken into, I won't know the pain of that. I want this once I've had it broken into. You're trying to prevent people from having it broken into in the first place. So in my head, I'm like, okay, if we're going to try to protect tools and there's a self-install, now we can actually or at least ideate ways to create this, like the building blocks to this. For example, if we now pull down like our building blocks for the creative, what you have, well, you probably want a product demo and a talking head on the self install, and you can show the same person talking while showing another video of somebody installing. And to kind of break that down, we can now ideate actual creatives. I guess I'll pause here. Is everyone following? It's making sense a little bit, or any questions? Good, cool. So I'm going to introduce this idea of like frames. So these are different ways ads that can be kind of displayed. So you could have the default thing, which is just like a static talking head video with, you know, no captions, no copy. You can have that TikTok style, green screen style, where somebody's talking over that video. You can have a version where there's a person talking up here and a demo being done down here. You can display that in 2 different ways. You can have a video of a customer talking, and then you can show kind of either a product demo, CCTV, and like an infographic. So what this opens up is there's now 100 ways we can kind of position this whole thing. We can combine demo and CCTV. We can just do demos with each other. We can do 3 different CCTVs. And now it's like what I've seen in the past is when people see this, they get really overwhelmed. Like, cool, I have the building blocks and I have the frames and I can multiply this in so many different ways. I don't know where to start. The point is you just start somewhere, the simplest one, and then you start getting ideas from within. Notice I don't even need to look at foreplay yet because I don't need more confusion because that's going to open up a whole different thing. Like I'll show you how my foreplay is structured, and it's structured exactly within each frame. So I have ideas, inspiration for this frame, inspiration for this frame, and I'm trying to pull ingredients, not the full recipe, because I want to create it from within. So within
Sorry,
this,
when you say foreplay, what are you meaning?
foreplay is like this app. I'll show you real quick.
Yeah, I never used it.
It's like you basically can save creatives, and this is what I use to like save assets. And I'll just quickly show you before I dive in. So we'll have like different frames of ways to display what I just showed you. So now that you saw the A and B stacked, you can kind of then see there's different ways to show the thing. Like this is like that A grid, just a default thing. This is now 2 grids stacked. So if you're missing content, let's say you don't have enough talking head videos, what can you pair that with to complete the visual? Because in your case, you don't have an abundance of CCTV or an abundance of talking head videos. Well, you can combine them to create a different video. And that's what we're going to do right now.
Yep. Okay. And that foreplay is mainly for capturing and storing ideas or concepts you've seen before. Yeah.
Yeah. So like it's kind of like a mood board or like a Pinterest board for ads. Like I'll just,
Right.
if I see something interesting or if anyone from the team sees anything interesting, we just kind of add that in. And like, you know, if there's a cool founder led video, which we haven't populated them yet, we've kind of been like saving them into like a swipe file, like all this random stuff. But now we're at a point where like, how do you categorize them? How do you bucket them? And then how do you pull from them? Because back to the point to overwhelm, when I had this, and we still have this, it's really overwhelming. Like you don't know what to copy, you don't know where to look. But if you chunk it, like I only want to see things within this grid, you now get ideas of, oh, cool. So I can take that infographic and I can take, you know, a CCTV video and I can have a picture of the product and then you have an ad right there. I don't think that'll work, but then that's where you start with, again, a ton of ideas and you cut, you consolidate. Everyone's problem is they have too much stuff and they can't decide. The job here is to brainstorm and then cut until you're left with like nothing. Like You start with 8, then you go to 3, then you go to 2, then you go to 1. So then self-install. Let's just build this out. I'm going to start kind of with ideas. Let's see here. I'm gonna assume that like my point of reference is this video. Whatever I've seen here is what I'm gonna work with.
Mhm.
So for self-install, I'm gonna show like a B-roll footage of tradesmen setting it up. One idea that's coming up into my head is like, well, what kind of tradesmen are typically buying this? So maybe you have like a plumber, electrician, carpenter. These are maybe different names in UK.
Yeah, chippy, but yeah, similar.
And within this, now I'm kind of looking at it like, cool, you can get a single frame video. It's like they said there's only one B-roll footage. Well, you can play with different copy and call out different ones. And let's say use a headline as a test here. Are you a X who is afraid to leave his tools in the car, for example? And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the best one to go with, but the idea here is if you were to run this test and you compare that against 5 different trades, you probably won't get a winning ad, but you'll probably get direction. You don't need the winner. You need an ideation for, cool, if carpenters are getting the best click-through rate and potentially the best leads or sales, maybe the volume isn't there, but now it gives you direction to go and source more videos from carpenters, not plumbers. You're just looking for an incremental win, not a home run. Other thing here. How are people typically showing the videos? Are they showing themselves installing it, or are they just showing like the product being installed themselves?
It's so like, yeah, install stuff is typically like quite close up, like drilling or just like hand and attaching. There's not a lot of like a big wide shot of the van and people putting it in, and that would be better footage to have, but yeah, there's not a lot of that. It's quite close up.
I'm making this number up. It could be longer, but let's say
Yeah.
you can 3 frames like open.
Basically, there's unbox, yeah, like drill it or stick it, and then your configure, yeah, like turn it on. It's pretty like that's the other 3 main steps.
So now the question is like, well, I don't have creative to do that. Well, what if you don't? What if you can take the same video and just do this? And you show the steps: open, drill, configure, and then complete. And there's a video of somebody like being done. So like the constraint is you don't have the content, but I wouldn't limit that from testing it. Again, we're gonna keep dumping these things in, and then we're gonna prioritize like highest likelihood of success. And then I'll explain the criteria that we look at. Let's see here, what else? Anyone got any ideas? Feel free to like chip in, because like internally we'll just like we do this like popcorning style. Like, you know, I'll like not get an idea, and then I'm like, what are ways to do it? And then you do this, and I'm like, oh, we can do it like that. It's more collaborative than single player.
Yeah.
Liam, you got any ideas?
I guess going off of kind of like the stock footage route is you could do like a competitor comparison. If the angle is say, I guess a problem solution oriented approach in the hook, you would start with the problem, which is these other companies create these alarms that are too confusing to set up, and they also are on like subscription services, so ends up becoming expensive in the long run. You could do like a 2 grid showing someone explaining the problem, with the bottom screen being like this really messy setup with cables, or someone just struggling with setting up the product or the competitors, and then move on to the next shot, which could be another 2 grid within the bottom, someone just, it could be a very sped up, like 2-minute time lapse of someone setting up the product and the person on top kind of just explaining the impact that had on them.
And when he's referencing to grid, are you talking about the vertical or horizontal one?
I'd say AB. I think that, yeah, top 2 grid would get the point across better.
So you're saying messy cables here?
Mhm.
And what would be up here?
Someone just articulating the problem they're having with, like, either it's too expensive, it's too hard to set up, and then you just swap visuals for whatever angle you're going through there.
Yep, and one idea just came to my mind is you can do the exact same thing, but invert that. Like, let's say typically in most customer testimonial videos, you have people talking about the problem and then people saying post-problem the solution. So you can take that same video and separate them. Customer talking about solution, and instead of showing messy cables, you just show bandmate setup. And then there's a whole other ad. But you're just addressing a different pain point. Like maybe somebody already has seen it, but now their objection, like I guess another way to think about this is like what are people's current objections? Like, is it too much? Is it too hard to set up? It won't work for me. And if you show the things that relate to them, then it will, or at least they need some angle that will. So yeah, this is good. But within the competitor comparison, you're probably going to want to use stock footage.
Yeah.
My guess. You probably won't have that. So anything else, Liam?
In my opinion, the most effective pain point would just be kind of the sentimental, just like talking to your iPhone kind of footage. I feel like the audience is going to be like kind of like humble, plumbers, electricians, carpenters. They don't want to be like blasted with too many visuals. I feel like if you did kind of like the grid we were talking about, A on top, B on bottom, with a guy just talking about how his van got broken into and he lost all his tools, pairing that with like the CCTV footage on the bottom, just like something to kind of, I guess, just articulate that like pain point or that struggle. And then you could switch into the AB we were just talking about of the guy kind of finding the solution and then showing really how easy it is to just set up that product, emphasizing that it's a one-time purchase and not something you're going to have to like recurringly pay for.
Yeah.
And then going
It's
off of the,
Go
sorry, go ahead, Sean.
I was just saying it's interesting you say that you think the target will resonate with the simplicity of the message, because historically a lot of the content that had been used for the brand was quite choppy, flashy, produced lots of stuff in the background, so yeah, definitely going down the simple route could be an interesting test.
Yeah, I think when we were looking at those ads, the first thing that lit up in my mind was it felt like it was very much led by the B-roll or the product demos, and then the testimonials were kind of sprinkled in. I think that approach should be flipped and it should be more led. The first thing you see on your screen is a person. I think that's always what's going to resonate most with people. And then sprinkling in that B-roll throughout to get the point across, and like doing the product demos just to hammer in like exactly what is being sold to them. But people are always going to be led by a story.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Just going off of what Liam was saying with the CCTV, I think something that would just put the point across is having multiple CCTV footages and just throwing them back to back of thieves kind of running away from the van. Because if you just see people that in different situations running from a van, you're going to wonder why they doing that. Like, what's making them stop? Essentially, it's not just like one occurrence.
Yep.
Notice how like up here it started a bit more complicated and now it's like getting simpler, right? The simplicity here. Like you have to start with these crazy ideas to realize like it's almost like a pendulum where you got to like have the full extremes on both sides and like you got to find the golden mean. And the easiest way to find out the best way to create these formats is you just start with the simplest one. Just have people talking to people and you're like, cool, this plumber did the best. Then you go into the iteration side. What new ways can I display him? Have him with the product demo, have him with the CCTV, have him with product demo and CCTV. Because you don't have to create new ingredients. Like you have the pantry full of them. That's the most important piece though, is like if now the bottleneck is cool, you know what to do, but you can't do it because you don't actually have the resources or the assets, and you have to go out and get them, but you don't know when you're going to get them, you're not going to do any execution. So it's kind of just what can you work with now? Like how do you end this call and you like launch 10 ads right now? That's the goal. Versus I got to reach out to Billo and I got to find and cast and make a brief, and you don't have to do anything. You have the assets you need. So
Yep.
maybe one thing, Matteo, for the future, I guess the next call is we can have people share their content library ahead of time, and then we can actually like build this out. Because I'm trying to like not jump between the tabs and like screenshot stuff, because that's where my head's going to, is like, let me actually visually build this out for you so you see it. Versus like displaying this. Because in my head, I see this made, but I understand that we see this all day. So it's very visual to me. But when it just becomes single talking head, all I'm thinking about is like this video. Just run this video raw, for example.
Yeah.
Maybe you did that, and if that didn't convert, I would run like an iteration there. So let's just do that actually. Let's say you're gonna run that guy, and we'll build this ad right now. Say his name's Mike. We'll call this concept Mike, UGC.
He's actually Marlon, if we want to name it correctly. Marlon. Yeah.
How do you spell it again?
Marlon.
Mhm.
Yep.
Cool. Cool. So I would just take that Marlin video and I would run one completely raw. I would
Yep.
then run the same video raw with a headline. I would then run it shortcut. And to me, shortcut is like, let's say this video is 2 minutes long. I would shorten it, as in like jump cuts.
Yep.
And within this, like those are 3 ads. From here, here's an iteration idea. Let's say Marlin works is really hard to iterate on like a single raw UGC, but let's say the headline converted the best. Then you go 5 new headlines, call outs. And then within the jump cuts, you do jump cuts starting at different positions in the video. So let's say at one point Marlin's like, hey, my name is Marlin. The next video is my car got broken into. The next video is, this thing changed my life. And then you cut to the main video, but you're just reshuffling the video. Another way to think about that is like, this is kind of how we think about the ads, is like they're puzzle pieces. Like you break the hook, like the hook should be no longer than, I mean, everyone says it's 3 seconds, but if you really want to go into like an anatomy of an ad, like this is what it looks like behind the scenes. Each puzzle piece is a different cut. And within Marlin's video, you might just have a single strip and that's it, just one video. Within that like cut up version, you might have Marlin as a hook and then the rest of the video is a single strip. And then you can replicate this across Jim and Jerry and whoever else you need. So you're looking for formats. You're not looking for individual ads. You're looking for something that's replicable, modular, not monolithic. If you want to go into like engineering, right? There's like monolithic and like modular. And monolithic, you can't scale. You build it once. That's my biggest issue with production companies. They make you one solid video for 200K, but you can't modify it. You can't cut it because the music, the sound effects, everything is baked into it. Here, I mean, you can just cut whatever you want. So I can share this resource and maybe we can dive into that specifically like on the next call, like the specifics of the thing. I'll just need like the content to like show this in like a Premiere timeline so you guys understand that. But to give you a live example of like a brand we work with called Breeze, we kind of like did it this way where it's same style. You take a video and like we tested different hooks, same concept, right? You have like this person as a hook, this person as a hook, older lady as a hook. We're testing things very methodically where we want people to want to try a middle-aged woman, a younger age woman, an older age woman. And we're trying to see, and we're keeping this constant, the headlines in the base. And our objective is which one converts. And we're competing with that like on another concept, which was like, you know, like this is a different angle of like why I stopped drinking. And within those things, like this was the best ad. From here, it's like, well, what do you do? Do you change the headline? You change the visual, but keep the headline the same? Like, why did the ad work the best? Was it a different angle? So then we like tested that. We stripped everything from the video, removed the headline, which was this one. We put a new headline in, put a different headline in, and we try to make them more variant where each test can give us a direction. So if the one with emojis worked the best and it converted at the best rate, well, then I'm going to try 5 more emojis and see where it breaks. Like I'm looking for an incremental win, not a huge win. And then off of that one, we did another one, which was like, this was a B-roll product demo, same guy talking, static photo. And I just swapped it out. And then this
It
is
never ends. Sorry.
What's
It
that?
never ends, and it never ends. It's like
Right, yeah, but the key thing here is like you want to keep it controlled, but like you want to also have a direction, right? Like here I'm like this video was their best video in that count from a non like product speaking standpoint. So I want to reuse the asset that they had with the asset that worked really well for us. So they have a really good product demo that works solo, and we built a really good video that works solo. What if you combine them? It's like 1 times 1 plus 1 equals 3 or whatever that saying is. So if this worked the best, here's what we can do from there. I don't think I'm going to throw in more headlines and like little side effects here. But what I want to do is tell them, give me 5 more videos with a different background, with a different recipe. And let's see what recipe works the best. Is it a pink drink? Is it a mojito? Like what drinks do people resonate with? Because that uncovers like people's consumer psychology. So it never ends, you're right. Again, you can play into like these frames, you can mix and match the frames. But the most important thing is you need the base. You need to find a concept. For example, if it's a raw UGC for Sean, like once you find that, in order to have a system that works, you just get more raw UGCs from Sean or like from the client. If you're a B2B company or a software company and your base is a customer interview and customer interviews work well and you can cut them up, well, then get more customer interviews because that's your input. That's going to feed the iterations because you can do this forever, but you're going to burn out here. You're going to overthink here and like there's incremental wins. These are like either it's going to work or it's not going to work. But the iterations are very like stable. So, and that's why I wanted to kind of explain this first and finish it up before we go into like how much do you test and how much budget, because really we can crank out 50 ads right now, but then you won't have the budget to spend them unless we figure the math out there. So within this, like maybe as an example, what we can do, Matteo and Sean, like if you send me the videos, I can just cut this up for you and show you what the final product looks like. Because I think that's the missing piece here, like for like it to hit like that aha moment of like, here's the idea into an actual ad. And then you'll understand how to actually do that yourself at scale. Because really the hardest part is not creating this. These are easy. You can go into CapCut or like iMovie and do that. The hard part is like what not to look at. Because within here, if we want to do one last exercise to kind of like prioritize that, I want a priority list. Like what's the next step? Like what do you start with? And my criteria kind of is for example, in your case, how difficult is it to get more CCTV footage or customer interviews? If it's not difficult at all, it's pretty easy to scale. If your whole business was built on influencer unboxing videos and sending it to YouTubers, and that's your best piece of content, well, you're constrained by shipping and then budget to influencers, and it's not really scalable. But if it's like a founder video, it's pretty easy to scale. And then kind of like what's working. If you find that fast cuts are not working, then let's not think about things that have fast cuts. Let's just go the opposite direction. So if the answer is simpler is untested and you have enough to create some variety, then I would start here. So in terms of priority, you can start with like 3 creators, 3 people. So you do 3 people times 3 hooks. And the 3 hooks are the following things, 3 concepts. So I'm assuming you have at least 3 people, right?
Yep.
So you got 9 ads right there, and you can pump that out really fast. I would also do, I like the competitor comparison. I feel like if we don't have the content available, it'll be hard to create. There'll be a roadblock. So I'd almost do like I'm curious, what do you guys think would do better? Like if you show the demo or
There's quite a bit of install footage. So like demonstrating a simple install is relatively straightforward, yeah, and can be produced pretty quickly as well.
Cool. So then what I would do here is I think the demo is pretty straightforward and it's more about the people showing the demo. So I would show 3 different people times same demo. Your 3 ads. There's your 9 ads. Is this kind of making sense? Like, can you visualize this a little bit?
Yep.
Cool. Let's see here. This is probably gonna be your best performer. That's my hunch. Is you do like that's like what works best for us as well. It's just a compilation where you have a different hook, but the same body. So it's like people talking about their customer journey, and that becomes this whole thing. So you take this script and you're like, let's say Marlon's like, my car got broken into. There's your hook. Then you show Jim, who's talking about what his problem was. Then you cut to Sean, who's talking about what the product is. And you go back to Marlon saying, I got this thing and it changed my life. No, that's a compilation.
Just stacks kind of the trust and credibility because it's multiple sources rather than just one.
Exactly. Yeah. And I would just do those compilations, like 3 different hooks. Concept. And there's like 15 ads. In terms of like structuring them, like I would call that like one ad set. I would call that a different ad set. And I would do, let's say this. I'm gonna break this down more. I'll make up some names here, assuming these are the names. I would just separate these and like have the concepts compete against each other and all the ads within there. That's kind of how I structure it. I'm not going to go into budget because it's different in every brand, but like I would just have it as isolated as possible. And like if this was us, we would have like 5 creators right there, 5 different creative tests. And the goal is you run this for a week.
Yep.
And let's say that this bombs, strike through. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. That's good. And that's like, okay. Well, I'd be curious to know, like, why did these not work and this one worked? What was different about Marlon? Was it his ethnicity? Was it his career? Like, what was it about this video that resonated with it? You can go into like the Facebook demographics and see like, was it a certain age that got targeted? For example, what's really interesting about these ads here is when you have a female in the hook, it only targets females. When you have a guy in the hook, it mostly targets men. And it changes the CPM and it changes the people that are buying. And I didn't really realize it was doing that at such a big scale. Like same ads in an ad set, but the ads are getting different deliveries, different people based off of the hooks. And within the Marlon thing, it could be same thing, different person, different ethnicity, different age, getting targeted, and he just resonates with other people. So if that's the case, like it's really important to analyze why it didn't work. So if you run this, we can do a whole other call where it's just like we break that down. Like, why did it work? How do you iterate? Like, and you can do that in real time as well. So you can spend the budget there. But, the thing I see everyone getting caught up in is like they're looking for the shortcuts to making these things, and it's really not that hard. It's more of like just have a structured test, like try to really isolate the things that you're trying to test it, and then analyze why it didn't work, and then the iterations are easy from here. Again, we can take Marlin and cut them up into different frames, put them into a compilation, whatever it is. But that's kind of like what I would do right now. If like you had a gun to my head and you're like, give me new creatives. I mean, this is something that you can do on your own. Pretty simple. Again, happy to like make Marlin, like I can put that in the chat after or in the school group and like say like here's what those 3 iterations look like. So that way you can like see. But yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. I can share some raw footage and see how some examples of how it might come together. I like the visual variations as well of just the blocks that you had side by side. Just helps you, you know, in that brainstorming process as well.
Yeah, and I think I was kind of going a little bit all over the place, just introducing a lot of new things. But once these are made, I'll then show like how do you iterate off of those, and then it's going to click because you just got to see it, and then you can like start getting ideas. Because like, you know, my head's going here, thinking of things, and Liam, because he sees these patterns every single day, he sees as well, and he's like, well, you can do a comparison. And notice we didn't go into ad library or look at competitors. Like the inputs are internalized, and they're just pulled from what you have. The prioritization will come from like likelihood of working, and that's where I would look at like what are your competitors doing? What are they running? They're probably running it for a reason, and I would base my decision there. But yeah. Any questions? And I know there's a lot of you guys.
Yeah, I got a question. Once you dial down this framework to create the ads you want, what do you say is the best way to move forward? You train somebody on your team to understand these different formats, and you delegate everything to somebody on your team, or you prefer to do it by yourself, or it's kind of a mix between both options?
In regards to new concepts, analyzing things, I guess what part exactly?
In regards of creating, once you have analyzed everything, the production basically.
Got it.
Because I mean, you have a well-dialed way to analyze and to came with multiple different ideas for creatives. You can have 50, 100 ideas in a morning, like or in a day. So what do you do next? You just plug that into somebody of your team. Does that person understand everything that you are asking for? Do you need to, for example, to train that person to understand a little bit more about what are you looking for, or how to interpret those different insights that you're sharing? Like, how does it look on your process, that stage?
Yeah, I like to have like this process. I like to have a more collaborative, because when you're on your own, you get in your own head and you only think within one frame. You only think within one concept. You can't think outside the box. And then somebody else can introduce comparison, and then my head starts thinking, oh, what have I seen before within comparisons? What else can I do? And I'm left with a list. Now, this is more of like the media buyer side of like, sometimes a creative might not understand the full fundamentals of an account, like account inventory. What are the goals of like the business, and what are you trying to push in terms of the catalog? That's where you like, I guess what a media buyer should do. This is what I was doing when I was like building this out internally for the company I was at, is I would work with an editor we would brainstorm these things. I would be the bridge between the finance and like the production of the actual product, and then the creative suite. Because I'm gonna be prioritizing this, because I have an intuition of what have I seen work in the account, what have I seen work across other accounts, what have I seen other people in other groups, what's working for them. And once I prioritize this, and you can articulate this, again, if it's like this, then you start getting into like creative briefs and like telling people what you want made. Like, let's say Sean is my editor right now, right? And I'm like, hey, Sean, like, I really need you to make Marlin UGCs. Just take one video and just cut out if there's a beginning 10 seconds where he's like pulling up the camera and like readjusting his voice, just cut that. And then that's one edit done. And then I want this copy or this headline. I don't want anyone else to think of the headline because I want it to be very specific, because most people don't know copywriting quite yet or at all. And then within the jump cuts, like I would list out, like when Marlon is talking about the problem, just hold that for 3 seconds and then cut to raw UGC. And I would just do very basic instructions and just have your editor do that. At the end of the day, like it should be so simple where if you look at your own instructions, you can do it. That's the goal. And I think the biggest problem with like the industry is people overcomplicate the creative brief, and they're like, it has to be this format and this size and this thing and like all these constraints. And you look at it and it feels like work. Like there's no creative process to it. But if you just kind of like make it flow wherever you want it to go, like anyone can follow that as well. And then you give people room to innovate and ideate. Like they might come back to you. Like I tried 5 different jump cuts. What do you think? And then you can pick from those 5. You're not limited to your own ideas. So did that answer your question? Like what to do from there?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Because
It's
I'm working with
Sometimes the fewer conditions that you give Lucas, the better, because it gives that room for innovation on the editor side of things.
right. Yeah. Actually, I'm working with a video editor. What I do is I write a copy and I ask for specific formats, and that's pretty much what I ask, and I don't tell him anything else. So he's quite free to do whatever he wants to do. And he came with this type of formats like the talking head, or maybe the AB square, the AB divided by half. But it's interesting because probably I can plug this type of process with that guy. I guess it will work really well.
Yeah, you don't want to limit the creativity. It's almost like you have like a pie chart.
Yeah.
Like you just want to like cut the options in half, and that's where they look. They don't look here. Because when people have too many options, your default is indecision. Like I can show you the other formats that we have. There's about 70 other formats. And if you look at that thing right now, you're like, holy shit, like it's too much stuff where you don't even want to make anything anymore.
Right.
But
You're right.
if I'm like, here's 5 options and here's 5 ideas, then you're thinking, how do I take those 5 ideas in 5 different options? And you're going to create more than had you had more options to begin with. It's a weird paradox. Like the less choice, you actually have more output, but the more choice, you have less output. And oftentimes it's, you don't know what you really want. But in this case, you know, if I'm consulting for Sean, I'm like, I really want this. Don't make anything outside of this, or innovate within these constraints. Like, you know, just make me like different talking heads, and like, you could have 50 videos, just pick 3 of the best ones. I don't care which ones are there, just pick 3 of the best. Male, female, and like young kid, for example. But there's still creativity, it's just not to like a full extent. But it's like a founder coming into you as a media buyer, and you're like, scale my ad account, and you're like, well, like where do I start? Like you got to start somewhere. Like you don't just like, you can't just click a button and generate a, you know, revenue for them. Like you have to build the base fundamentals, and once you have that in place and the systems are there, then you can just turn the dials. And this is just building the foundation where you need more of this, just turn the dial, replicate that. That's like your increased ad budget, lower cost cap type thing. But you can only do that when you have the right campaign structure and the right funnel and the right, you know, ads in the account. But when you have nothing there and you have no structure, it's like, where do you start? You know? And you start with like understanding the problem you're trying to solve. So it's just like media buying and anything. It's like you can't just jump. That's why I kind of these are great questions that were asked by everyone. And the pattern I noticed is everyone wanted to jump into like streamlining, automating, shortcuts. And that was like a common thing here, which I think is great. But if you're going to shortcut something without knowing why you're shortcutting it, you're never going to solve the root cause of the problem. You know, it's like everyone on Twitter in marketing, they're like, yeah, I just do cost caps or bid caps. Like, but why? What does it work for me? Like what it works, but it might not work for my situation. Like, how much spend do you have? What's the goals of the business? What's the AOV? Like, there's so many conditions to this, which then like to solve this problem of like testing structure, that depends on your product and how many creatives you can do and your budget and the goals. You know, so there's a lot of nuance to all this, but that's why I always start with like, let's just kind of consolidate, let's just build something. And then from there, it's very actionable. But if I just told you like, we spent 40 minutes talking about budgets, then cool, I need creatives now to put them in. And then it's like, that's way harder to solve than the budget thing. I think that's my personal opinion. So yeah, I hope this was like helpful.
Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, really good. Thank you.
This is great. Super helpful.
I guess for next week, we can do the same thing, but I guess have more preparation, I suppose, like maybe have content ahead of time. Then I can basically build this out live. Because then I guess if you're seeing this, you can visualize this now, right? Like you can see the differences. But when it's in a Figma, like green and blue block, it's like a little bit harder. So maybe we can kind of engage the community next week or over the week, and then someone can submit something like that. And then we can come prepared.
I think that's great. Even Lucas, Zach, we also have Jason as well. If you guys want to share any ads or anything in your ad account or your ads library, then yeah, we can definitely pull it back up next week.
Cool. And then I guess last bit of feedback, like I kind of did, I guess, Q&A throughout this, but is it more interesting to like see this happen in real time than like having a prepared thing?
Yeah.
I think so as well, yeah.
At least for me, it's better to see it in real time to understand a little bit more where things are coming from.
Cool. Because like we do all this stuff. Like we do have like, Zach, I do want to answer your question. Like I will answer that because we have a script that like renames everything and like comes up with concepts from the talking points. But if you don't know how to replicate that, it's really, really hard to like why are you trying to do it? So that's why I'm big on like, let's just get the foundation right, maybe for a couple of weeks, and then we can like go into like a deeper in the weeds, like week 3 and 4, something like that. Because this is pretty advanced stuff. I think most people are not there yet as like file renaming.
Yeah, I mean that's for when you have like a lot of new creatives coming in all the time. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But it's good that you have the problem. Many don't.
It's a high quality problem to have.
Cool. Any last questions or as we wrap up?
Cool. Yeah, I want to give a last chance even to Jason. I know you tuned in for a little bit as well. Zach, Lucas.
No, I'm good. I joined late, but I just wanted to watch.
Oh, what's up, Jason? I didn't know you were on the call.
Hey, oh yeah.
Good.
If no one has anything else, I just wanted to ask one thing on the variations that you just showed. So I'm just wondering, when you test those different variations with the hook being different, do you manually change the thumbnail of the ad as well, or do you leave that to Meta to decide what to show?
Keep that constant across all those 5 creatives, because that's also a different variable. So if you're going to be testing just the hook within the video, I want to keep the thumbnail constant for all those videos as well. So that way, when that hook works, I know that it wasn't because there was a better hook or a better thumbnail being used. But not all clients or brands, not everyone follows that, because we're not like, that's what I would do. That's what I did. But I would advise that is like, if you're going to test the hooks, just keep everything constant, but that one variable.
So that still means a manual thumbnail, or?
Yeah, sorry. Manual thumbnail, yeah.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Phil, this was epic. Thank you so much.
For sure. I can also clean this up and like organize that, and then I can, post this all in like the I'll share this Figma with everyone, so like it'll be a live board that everyone can have in like the school group. But I'll clean this up for you guys, so it's not like my brain everywhere.
It's great though.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think for next call, we can definitely get up some examples here of some various ad library accounts and yeah, just basically dive into more like that.
Sweet. Appreciate the opportunity to share.
Any other last questions, comments, thoughts before we wrap this first one up? Going once, going twice. Cool. We'll see you guys next week. This was absolutely awesome. Thank you so much, Phil, and for everyone to join. Looking forward to the next one.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Bye.